Hey there, my name is Przemek, and here's the first part of my list of top dark deep ambient albums ever. I've been meaning to create such list for a few months, and I finally got around to do it, and here it is. But first, some background info. First of all, this is my list. Don't treat it as any final list. Don't take it for granted. Sure, if you don't know any of these albums, I highly encourage you to check them out, but this is a list based on my history and my experience with this type of music. In many cases, there are records that are not generally considered as the best in the discographies of given artists, but my personal nostalgia also comes into play here. Many of these albums simply shaped me as a fan of dark deep ambient. Some of them still shape me. That's why, for example, there are no solo albums by, for example, Last Mort, whom I respect and like. But when I was preparing the list, I realized that simply there's no place for him in this 50, and I won't force myself to give up on someone else just so that someone considered one of the founding fathers of the genre could be included. So not only Last Mort, but also a few other seemingly obvious musicians or projects will be missing here. Secondly, I might have forgotten someone. At first, I wrote the list of the top of my head. Then I looked through all the albums you can see behind me, but it could have happened that I missed something important. You know, I'm only a human being in the mid-40s. My memory isn't the same, but probably at the end of this series. I will record an additional video where I will briefly refer to the albums that either just escaped me somehow while compiling this list, or simply didn't manage to get to this 50, although they were very close. Because really, this list is for now, for this present moment. And about 30, maybe 35 albums would definitely always be included, but the remaining 15 or 20 or so might not have been included if I had made it a month ago or next month. I tried not to let any single artist dominate the list, and if possible, I wanted each project to be represented by only one album, but in few cases it was simply impossible, and some projects appear more than once, sometimes solo, sometimes in collaborations, sometimes in different projects, although if I'm not mistaken only one project is on the album on this list with two solo albums. You can guess what project it is. One more thing, as you can see, it's a dark deep ambient list, but it's a name, it's a pigeonhole, and the line where this type of music ends can be moving and fluid. I didn't approach this topic analytically, like the music must be based on drones, no vocals, no rhythms or something. My approach was simple: either a record has an ambient feel or it hasn't. That's it. I know for you some of these albums may not fit this category, but as I say, this is my list and my vision of how I perceive this type of music. Okay, that's enough for the introductory informations. Let's get to the point. In a few words, I will talk about these albums, not in the form of regular reviews, but short impressions, sometimes my memories related to a given album. It's possible that some of these albums will appear in my retro reviews sometime in the future, but we'll see. Okay, let's begin. Number 50. Inade, the incarnation of the solar architects. Inade, German duo René Lehmann and Knut Enderlein. It has always been associated with Loki Foundation label, which is not surprising because these two gentlemen run this very distinguished label. Active since early 90s, they tirelessly provide us with industrialized dark ambient with a very esoteric twist. But guess what? Inade was so close to not being on this list. I was writing down the albums in my notebook, and after about 45 releases, I realized that I haven't even thought about any Inade album. And yet, I love this project. But I also quickly realized why I initially forgot about Inade. Because for me, their entire discography is of a very similar level, and for me, none of the albums stands out from the others. Of course, none of them differs in a negative context as well. From Burning Flesh to the 9 Colors of the Threshold, I'm only talking about Inade full albums. If I rate these albums with points, the differences would be minimal. Half point, 1 point of difference the most. But I knew this list would be incomplete without Inade, so I had to pick one. I chose from two, the Crackling of the Anonymous, and this was the first Inade album I heard a long time ago, or the Incarnation of the Solar Architects. Crackling of the Anonymous somehow shaped me as a fan of dark ambient, like many other albums that will appear on this list later. But I finally decided to include the Incarnation because in the last decade I listened to it a lot of times, for every time with a great pleasure. How many layers there are, how full and juicy sound of this album is. Dark ambient, a bit of industrial, a bit of solemnity, sometimes even getting a bit close to classical music, and those characteristic vocals, resounding brilliantly in the left-handed sign, a true dark ambient banger. The Incarnation of the Solar Architects, number 50 on this list. Okay, number 49. God-Body Disconnect, The Mist Between Mirrors. Simon Heath, who runs the Cryo Chamber label, in addition to releasing well-known names, gives a lot of opportunities to young, unknown artists who spread their wings on his label under the aegis of what is probably the biggest dark ambient label at this moment. And of all Simon's inventions, I like two projects the most. Mount Shrine from Brazil, which unfortunately will never record anything again. Rest in peace, Cesar. And New York based God-Body Disconnect, the project by Bruce Malem. I thought for a long time which of these projects deserves a place on the list more, and I decided to include God-Body Disconnect. But if I were doing a top 60, Mount Shrine would definitely be included in the following 10, between 50 and 60th place. 8 solo albums so far, and basically all of them are like pages from a musician's diary. and I think you can easily treat God Body Disconnect's discography as one big whole, one big story. I like all the albums, same case like with Inade. I wouldn't say that any of them is significantly better than the others, but I choose The Mist Between Mirrors from 2019, God Body Disconnect's third album. But why this particular one? I honestly don't know. As I said, these albums are very consistent, but this one seemed to fit into the right time somehow. At a moment when I wasn't in the best mental shape, and somehow I identified with the emotions on this album. And there's a lot of emotions here, you know, but they are almost like always subdued and introverted, you know. This release is like working through trauma, not by screaming but by whispering alone in an empty apartment. In a review on Santa Sangre, I once wrote, I sense that it's that mist between mirrors where you can find his real soul dwelling, where he invites you to meet and confront his doubts, his fears and dreams, if there are any. For an introspective person, this might be a painful process, I know that really well, but also to some point purifying and giving the relief. This is how I read God Body Disconnect music, as the vent to release his deepest emotions. Lot of great sad melodies, delicate synth sounds, a bit of post-rock sensitivity, and the musicians' characteristic monologues. Although there's less of them than on the other God Body Disconnect albums. This one is great, as is the entire God Body Disconnect's discography. The Mist Between Mirrors, number 49. Number 48. Zoat, the Triplex Bestial. I may or may not have mentioned it before somewhere, but with all my respect for the Finnish label Oral Hypnox, I'm not a die-hard fan of it. Of course, I like many artists gathered under this banner, including Arctau Eos or Halo Menage, but if I were to rank my favorite ambient labels, Oral Hypnox wouldn't probably be in the top 5. But as I say, I respect them for their consistency of message, uncompromising approach and faithfulness to their own ideas over the years. Let's take Arctau Eos for example. It has become quite a big name in the recent years. You know, appearances on Roadburn Festival, etc. But they haven't softened their message for a moment, even for a moment. It is still the same Arctau Eos as on the first albums. I also respect this label for the minimal use of synthetic means of expression and the use of natural sounds and instruments, often homemade, which is a foundation that characterizes all musicians recording for Oral Hypnox. However, there is this one album that I have to put on this list because what an album it is. Zoat, the Triplex Bestial, the second work of the project led by Jaakko Vanhala, released in 2006. A deep forest in Finland, hooded figures, a bonfire, strange symbols and sigils made of branches, you know, and a constant feeling of danger caused by some unnamed force lurking between the trees. The intensity of this album still amazes me. The darkness counterpointed by a few calmer fragments, a lot of great varied sounds. It is basically an album without any boring or unnecessary moments. It's absorbing and gripping from beginning to the very end, despite being over an hour long. Drones, pulsations, howling owls, whispers, lunatic dancing, call to the wild, and all this with minimal, if not none of this, I'm not sure, use of synths. A true Finnish cult, definitely my favorite oral Hypnox album. Zoat on the Triplex Bestial number 48. Okay. Number 47. Troum. Tjukurppa, actually. Part 1. Harmonies. Troum, the German duo of Glitch and Baraka, formed on the ashes of Mirror 3, an equally brilliant project. It was a hard case here. Troum's discography is so vast that it was difficult to me to choose just one album, but after deeper reflection I came to the conclusion that I have particular esteem for the Tjukurppa trilogy, especially this first part, Harmonies, published in 2001. The next parts were drones and rhythms and pulsations. However, harmonies are closest to my heart, probably because I like nice harmonies in ambient music. Troum is the old German word for dream, and in fact, dreams are in a sense the basis of this project's work. After all, one of their albums is even called Dreaming Music, and the motto of this album of Harmonies is: "These are dreams dreamed by dreamers who are awake." And this is the feeling of this music: dreamy, oniric, based on extended sounds of processed guitars and accordion, drowning in reverb, and the sound which is unmistakable with any other project. Troum has developed its individual style, and as we know, this is incredibly difficult, especially in ambient music. In their case, when you hear this specifically wailing guitars, you immediately know, aha, this is Troum. On Harmonies, they present their best. There are a lot of melodies and an atmosphere that is a vessel for lucid dreaming. A lot of word dream I use in this describing this Troum album, but there's no other option. This album also includes one of the most beautiful songs ever, the fourth, Skauneis, which ennobles this dreamlike atmosphere with subtle emotions, very delicate and fleeting piece, very touching. Tjukurppa Part 1 Harmonies is a perfect music for escaping into the unknown after a hard day of work, relaxing but not in a trivial way. Number 47 on this list, Troum Tjukurppa Part 1 Harmonies. And the last one for this episode, number 46. Terra Sancta, Exile. Terra Sancta, a criminally underrated project from Australia, whose work I have been following almost from the beginning. Today I think Terra Sancta doesn't seem to exist anymore, at least that's what I know. And the album I decided to put on the list is Exile from 2014, which is both Terra Sancta's magnum opus and the swan song. The other albums of the project, Eon and Disintegration, are also amazing, but I think it was on Exile when Greg Good polished his vision of music to a shine. It's the kind of ambient music that when you play it to someone for the first time, someone who doesn't listen to ambient on a daily basis, that person would look at you like you're crazy and say, but nothing is happening here. There's just some noise. Someone recorded the sound of the wind, and that's all. Basically, there's a lot of truth in these words. You look at the cover, and this is this kind of atmosphere, you know, Australian desert, wind, total isolation. First there was apocalypse, then there was Mad Max, and after Mad Max there was Terra Sancta. There are no people here anymore. There's nothing here. Look at the titles, you know, Empire of Ashes, Kingdom of Dust, The Desolate Land, Vanishing Point, End Path. It's a post-mankind ambient. Although it seems to me that the previous albums, Eon and Disintegration, had even more massive sound, sometimes even on the kind of the line between ambient and noise. But on Exile there's some melody, subtle and pressed into the background, but still leaving a significant mark on the album. These melodies are like reminiscent of a mirage looming far on the horizon. This is what I wrote in my review on Santa Sangre in 2014. One of the songs on this album was recorded in cooperation with the American project Razorhake, which was a bit of a meteor on the scene. It appeared for a while, recorded one great album plus a few smaller materials, and disappeared, vanished in thin air. I felt sorry, but not as sorry as the lack of another Terra Sancta albums. Maybe this project will come back someday, but for now, Terra Sancta, Exile. Number 46 on this list. Okay, that's it. Next part of this list, well, I'll try to make it until next Saturday. Hope you enjoyed this video. If yes, please click like, leave a comment or something if you wish, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet. Okay, thanks for watching and see you soon.